Hi, this is Matt Frieda with Team Frieda, and today we're going to be discussing the top 5 hidden costs when relocating to the Orlando area. But before we get started, please check us out online. Go over to Google, type in Team Frieda, and look at our reviews. We have been helping buyers and sellers relocate here to Central Florida over the past 20 years. And if you like the video, please subscribe to our channel. Like this video, and then also drop us a line if there's any other topics you'd like us to discuss in the future. All right, so we're gonna start with number 1 on my list, which is near and dear to my heart, which is lawn care here in Central Florida. Something I never anticipated when I moved here. I'm originally from North Jersey, and up there, I just remember growing up, and we were not a green thumb kind of family. My dad would mow the lawn, sometimes my brothers would mow the lawn, but that's it. They would just mow the lawn, and that was the end of it. And we had seasons up there. So in the winter, obviously no lawn care, but here in Florida, it's a 24/7, 365-day career. So you need to be prepared. Either you're going to do it yourself or you're going to have to hire somebody. And down here, especially, they have a St. Augustine grass, right, which is a beautiful type of grass, but it's not native to the area. So it's very, very difficult to maintain. And also you have to water it a lot. You have to hire companies to do the fertilization. And at the same time they fertilize, but also they're treating for bugs. I mean, there's things called chinch bugs down here that will eat your lawn up in a very short period of time. So these are expenses. I mean, the fertilization, anywhere from $85 to $150, $160 a month. Lawn care, about the same thing. But again, these are things that when you buy a house, we all talk about principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and if there's an HOA, that's your total housing expense, right? But there's these ancillary costs, like lawn care, if you have a pool care, all of these other outside things that do factor into your monthly payment, including your utility bills and your water bill. And that's what's gonna segue, I'm gonna segue into like my second point, which is irrigation. Because if you live within the city limits, in most places, you're gonna pay for what's called reclaimed water here, all right? So reclaimed water, it's just literally sewage water that they treat and then put it back on to our lawns. But you're paying for this. You're paying for that treatment, and then you're paying for the water costs going forward. And there's a lot of cities now that have restrictions, meaning you can only water certain days of the week, you can only water for a certain amount of time. And if you go over that usage, they are gonna tack on an additional fee. And this is where I've been battling these costs for years. Sometimes my water bill has exceeded my electric bill, believe me. Because again, I have a bigger lot, and if I'm going over the usage, then I get charged additional fees. And that's another reason now, like a lot of people are going with new construction, 0 lot lines, because the lots are much smaller. They're easier to maintain. The water bills are not as high. Some of the builders are putting St. Augustine in the front of the properties for aesthetic purposes, but then in the back, they're putting like bahia, or like a grass that essentially browns up in the winter. It's a little easier to maintain. It doesn't have to be watered as much, right? So there are ways to conserve. There are ways to keep those costs down. It just really depends what you're looking for. But be prepared that if you are buying a bigger lot in areas that are, areas like in Orlando or Longwood or Lake Mary and Apopka, where they have bigger lots, some of the older communities, just be prepared for those additional expenses that you're gonna have. And that kind of segues into my next point, which is just general home ownership maintenance. I'm going into a lot of properties that have not been maintained over the years by the sellers, and because it costs money, not just maintenance, but also the properties that are a little older that need some updating. But when it comes to general maintenance, I mean, to try and keep that expense down, we always recommend a home warranty. And I know what you're gonna say, I've had clients over the years who've gotten burnt by home warranties. And what I mean by that is they think they have a warranty, they do have a home warranty, but there's when they file a claim, those claims aren't covered and they get, upset. So I always recommend the Mac Daddy home warranty. Usually they're $600, $700, $800 a year, depending upon the size of the property, and also add-ons. If you have the right plan in place, you will get these things replaced. We've used them for pool pumps, we've used them for HVAC, we've used them for hot water heaters. And again, there's a $100 deductible, but if you call an HVAC technician, if you call a plumber, they're gonna hit you with a trip charge just to come out, anywhere from $85 to $150 just to diagnose the problem, right? Now, with the warranty, you're gonna pay that deductible, but again, if you have the right plan, those additional expenses to repair will be covered. And again, that's huge. So be prepared. As a homeowner, you're gonna have expenses, things are gonna break. That's just the way it is. And that leads me to my next point number 4, which is, especially coming from the North, I didn't have homeowners associations growing up. It was just never on my radar. And quite frankly, until I bought my first home, I never experienced an HOA before. Now, HOA fees, depending upon the community, they vary. Some are paid monthly, some are quarterly, some are biannual, some are annual. And the fees vary depending upon the amenities in the community. So communities, that are gated, that have the fancy swimming pools and the clubhouses and the tennis courts and, pickleball and all these great things, you're gonna pay more for those amenities, right? So just know what those costs are. These are hidden costs, but they also have to be disclosed. You will get an HOA disclosure no matter what community you go in, if there is a homeowners association, disclosing exactly how much those fees are. And then the last hidden cost, which a lot of people don't take into consideration when relocating here to the Orlando, Central Florida market, are tolls. Like, we don't have state income tax here in Florida, which is fantastic, but we do have tolls, and you have to kind of decide, like, once you decide where you want to be, what does your commute to your job look like? And can you take local roads? There's always ways around if you don't want to pay the tolls, but there's just a lot of traffic here. There's literally 1,000 to 1,500 people a week moving into our area. There's just a lot of growth here in Central Florida. That's why the toll road systems have been put in place, because you can circumvent a lot of that traffic. We use the 429 on the west side of town, the 417 on the east side of town, the turnpike that runs north and south. We now have an I-4 expressway toll, which, if you want to get downtown and you live on the outskirts of Orlando, it's fantastic. Because I-4, for anyone that knows, it could be, like a parking lot at certain times of the day. But when you get on that expressway, yeah, you have to pay a little extra, obviously, but it's a trade-off. You're paying for your time to get somewhere quickly. So these are just, things to take into consideration on top of, the principal, interest, taxes, insurance as your payment, when you look at everything as a whole. And that's when you work with us, with Team Frida, you have expert advisors around. We don't sugarcoat anything. We've done this for 20 years. We've literally helped over 1,000 buyers and sellers in our market. So these are things that we foresee that we can educate you on, so you have a better picture of what you're getting involved in. All right, so thank you so much for watching this video. As always, if you enjoyed this topic, please like our channel, please subscribe, we greatly appreciate it. Drop a comment if there's any additional topics you'd like for us to discuss, and you can call or text me directly, 407-383-4021. Thanks so much.